in order to accrue a year towards his free agency. So that's the only reason I see him coming back at all this year. But if he does get traded, and the teams that are, I think, looking right now are obviously Seattle. I don't necessarily I'm not gonna bump up Vincent Jackson if he goes to Seattle. I will bump up Malcolm Floyd because there will be no more risk that he's not going to be the number one at any given moment. So Malcolm Floyd at 24, if you're doing drafts right now, is probably a very good value because you could see he's got the size and he's got the speed. He actually may be a little bit bigger than Vincent Jackson. I don't quote me on that, but I don't think he's as talented as Vincent Jackson by any means. But in that offense, in the weak division that they play, you could see Malcolm Floyd putting up easily 1,000 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns this year, especially if Vincent Jackson gets traded. And then at number 26 overall, I have Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace led the league last year as a rookie in yards per completion, I believe. I think it was right around 19, between 19 and 20. He was the only the second rookie to ever do that. The first was Chris Chambers back in his heyday. Obviously, there are concerns about whether it's going to be Byron Leftwich throwing him the ball or Dennis Dixon. I hope it's Dennis Dixon. I think he is more athletically gifted. I think that he's probably a little bit more accurate than Byron Leftwich. But, you know, Roethlisberger coming back after probably week 4. Mike Wallace should be great value to get at number 26. He could put up top 15 numbers. You know, he's still got Hines Ward to contend with, but Santonio Holmes is gone, and the emergence of the Steelers' running game, and you've seen the Steelers kind of morph into a passing team over the past year and a half, 2 years. So Mike Wallace will obviously benefit from all of those things. Okay, moving to Tier 5, I have Terrell Owens, Pierre Garçon, Donald Driver, Braylon Edwards, Devin Hester, Nate Burleson, Jabbar Gaffney, Derek Mason, Santana Moss, and TJ Houshmandzadeh. Now, I have TJ ranked a lot lower than most people. It's because TJ is not a number 1 wide receiver. Number 1 wide receiver usually is man-marked by the corner, and the safeties usually roll his way. TJ was putting up all of his numbers when he was a number 2 in Cincinnati and just had basically one man to beat, or to be able to find that little pocket in the zone to sit down and let Ocho Cinco take a lot of that coverage away from him. So unless one of the other wide receivers there, either Mike Williams or maybe, I don't think Golden Tate can do it at all, but maybe Mike Williams could develop as that quote-unquote number 1, put TJ as the split end or run him out of the slot, and I think that he could have a better season. He still has Hasselbeck throwing him the ball. I have no idea what's going to go on with that running game right now. So if they decide for some stupid reason to start Julius Jones over Justin Forsett, the running game is going to be non-existent. The offensive line is still, I don't want to say bad, but you know, there's still room for improvement there. So sending TJ as the number 1 and have him running those deeper routes, I don't think benefits him or the team in the least, but that's how they're playing him, so that's why I have him ranked so low. Jabbar Gaffney, who I have at 33 overall, is an interesting pick. I think he's definitely the number 1 in Denver right now, especially with, I think Demaryius Thomas has been nursing an injury. Not nursing, but he's been going through an injury, and he's a rookie wide receiver. So that learning curve is definitely steepened by him missing all those reps in training camp and in practice. Jabbar Gaffney reports have said that he's looked good. He still does have Kyle Orton passing him the ball. I'm not a Kyle Orton fan at all, but someone's got to be there to catch it. Brandon Marshall did it last year. Jabbar Gaffney is not nearly as talented as Brandon Marshall, but still, he's a number 1 receiver on a NFL team, so he's gonna get some production. What that is, I have absolutely no idea. Maybe 800 to 900 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I'm not sure, but I also have Devin Hester ranked in this tier along with Pierre Garçon, and those two are kind of question marks for me. Pierre Garçon hasn't been practicing recently, and he's got Anthony Gonzalez coming back as competition. Obviously, Austin Collie and Reggie Wayne are there. Dallas Clark is there. So I think that if Garçon is healthy and he can stay healthy throughout the year, I think that he could be a definite wide receiver too in most leagues. But just the injury scares me. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but just be careful when you're looking down and seeing Garçon on the draft board. Make sure that you check his injury status before your draft, and you'll know a little bit more. Moving on to the last group, I have Chris Chambers, Chaz Schillens, Devin Thomas, Dez Bryant, Lee Evans, Eddie Royal, Devin Aromashadu, Steve Breston, Welker, Meacham, Mike Williams at Tampa Bay, Mike Thomas, Austin Collie, and Julian Edelman. Now, before everyone jumps all over me about Welker, I'm still not convinced that he can come in and play close to what he did last year. I know that the Pats got him in for a couple plays and got 2 catches the other night against Atlanta. Now, if you are convinced that Wes Welker is going to be healthy and is going to be able to play and make those cuts when he's getting jammed at the line, then you bump him way up, probably to tier 2, maybe low in tier 2, high in tier 3. Because if he is healthy, he's going to get you 115 catches, and especially in a PPR league, he's probably a tier 1 wide receiver as well. Just the knee injury, I think it was his ACL and his MCL. Going through a bunch of ACL surgeries myself, I know how long it takes to get back, and I was obviously not close as an elite athlete as Wes Welker, so he was more in shape going into the surgery, which helps in the recovery time. But just at this moment right now, only have seen him playing basically 2 series and getting 2 catches. I mean, I will say that he did look good. We'll see how after he can play. I think the 3rd game they'll probably start or play the starters, the 3rd preseason game, for a full half. So we'll see how he holds up after that, and then adjust my rankings accordingly. But if you do want to take a risk on Wes Welker early, make sure that you pick up Edelman. I don't ever say draft a handcuff for a wide receiver, but in this case, I think you can. Edelman, when Welker was out last year, Edelman had like 8 or 9 catches a game. The yardage was, fairly similar to Welker's. He's not as good of a player. He is what I consider a Wes Welker light. So if you can get Welker early and Edelman late, I think you're going to get that Patriots slot production. Obviously, take a little bit off for if you have to start Edelman, but if your roster's deep enough and you feel comfortable, then go ahead and do it. I have Meacham down at number 46 overall. He's gone through a little bit of injury in the off season. He emerged second half of last year, just as Lance Moore emerged second half of the year before that. So you just never know with these Saints receivers. Colston is by far the safest one to pick. But between Lance Moore, Robert Meacham, and Devray Henderson, you never know which one of those guys is going to be the guy from game to game. So Meacham's definitely worth the late round flyer, or mid to late round. I wouldn't say mid. Probably I'll talk about 14-team leagues because that's the size that I play in. In a 14-team league, I'd probably start looking maybe for a Meacham in the 10th round or later. I don't think that you draft him to be a wide receiver 2 by any means, even though he may give you wide receiver 2 production. He's a great flyer to have on your bench, that if he does start to take off, or if Lance Moore gets injured again like he did last year, or Henderson goes down or Colston goes down, then his production's obviously going to be boosted. But just be careful.